Welcome to the College of DuPage Certified Nursing Assistant Training Program. This is the CNA Student Orientation for Spring 2021. It is a virtual orientation, so welcome to the New School of Thought. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dilla Scalio. I'm the Interim Dean of Nursing and Health Sciences. Misha Essex, somebody you've all worked with, is the CNA Program Specialist. And Ideen Zarkin and Karen Batke are our two full-time CNA program instructors. We have many part-time instructors. All of us are here to support you to be successful in your program. Feel free to reach out to any of us with assistance at any time. Again, welcome. We couldn't be happier to have you. So let's talk about being successful and staying connected. What I need you to do is to check Blackboard and your COD email every day. I know you guys have been doing that, but this is the way that we communicate all kinds of things to you. Blackboard sends emails to your student email account, so this will only be sent to your COD email. I want to say we need to be connected so that we can all finish our goals together. And speaking of goals, let's talk about the goals of the CNA Student Orientation. First, we're going to ensure completion of the mandatory paperwork for the state and the college. There's paperwork, and oh heavens, there's paperwork. But the paperwork for the state and the college needs to be completed in order to move forward. Next, we have some mandatory safety and confidentiality videos that you need to watch, as well as a video about bloodborne pathogens. I'm going to review some of the CNA Student Handbook information. You're going to watch a short video on hand hygiene. Pay attention to that hand hygiene video because you're going to be tested out on that skill on the first day of lab. Then we're going to complete a CNA Student Handbook quiz. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to be giving you quiz questions. Grab a piece of paper and you can write down the answers so that you know at the end of all of this what the quiz will be, so that'll keep you from having to listen to this. This presentation is about 1 hour and 10 minutes. I value your time, so take some notes. Here we go. Let's get started. The very first thing that we need to get started with is a student ID. For those of you who are students at the College DuPage, you should have a student ID. If not, I need you to send your names to Misha Essex so that we can get you on a list so that we can get a student ID. In order for you to go to clinical, you will have to have the College of DuPage student ID with you. You might get a little sticker that says you're a CNA student to put on it, but you will not be able to take care of patients or go to clinical without your student ID. It's also important if you need to check out materials from the library, but we need to get you started. Once we get your name, we'll get you processed to get your student ID. I'll punch a hole in this so that you can hang in this from your lapel or from your uniform. Again, send your name in to Nisha if you need to get a student ID. Let's talk about forms, and more forms. Welcome to healthcare. When you finish this program, just before you finish this program, you're going to do something called Petition to Graduate form. That is found in My Access. You use the code NURSA.CER.CNAT. That's a petition to get you the certificate of completion for the BNA program. You will need that in order to apply for the nursing program or for other nursing programs that require you to have the certificate of completion. Please take a look at your class schedules. Look at where you're supposed to be as far as lab, whether you're supposed to turn something in online, or at what clinical site you're going to be. The class schedules can be kind of confusing right now, especially because of the pandemic. We're trying our best to meet you at the Westmont Center to do your labs. We're still in process with that, so we're working with that. By the way, you will also have some release forms to sign. The release forms have to do with your coronavirus history. What does that mean? Gosh, don't mean to be vague, but if for some reason you've been exposed to coronavirus, you've got to let us know, and we'll figure out what to do with you on for lab days and for clinical days. We need to have that documented, but the release form also talks about communication of communicable diseases, not just coronavirus, which happens to be our pandemic right now. But we've got some release forms for you. So let's just talk about this first set of forms called the Clinical Readiness Form. Please refer to your Edward Corporate Health Clinical Clearance Form for important information regarding your health. It's highly recommended that you complete the health requirements such as vaccinations and blood titers, that's when they draw blood levels to see if you're immune, in a timely manner. I'm going to go over this again. Please refer to your Edward Corporate Health Clinical Clearance Form for important information regarding your health. It's highly recommended that you complete health requirements such as vaccinations and blood titer levels in a timely manner. We need that information to get you placed in your clinical setting so that you can move forward. So I'm hoping that most of you got your flu vaccines. If your answer is no, then you need to make a visit to your healthcare provider for the current seasonal flu vaccine. This is not the COVID vaccine. This is the seasonal flu vaccine, which is required for our clinical affiliations. In order for us to have you okayed, we need to have documentation of the following. On the document, you need to have your name, the name and the address of the provider, the date of the vaccination. There's a thing called the lot number of the vaccination. That's the specific number that's assigned to the vaccine, and the expiration date. When you have a copy of that, and they usually give you a form, what you need to do is make a copy of the original document, proof of flu vaccine, and upload that into the Castle branch account. Please let us know if you have any problems with that, but we do need to make sure that you've had at least a flu vaccine. If you don't, this is what you may look like. And all of us are tired. We have headaches. I don't know if you have a runny nose. I have some allergy problems. But oh my goodness, I don't want you to have any of these things. I want you to be able to complete this, and hopefully we'll emerge stronger out of this. So let's talk about safety at the College of DuPage. We need to think about safety first. Safety is the most important thing in healthcare. Why? Because you could potentially hurt somebody. But when we think of safety at the College of DuPage, there's a lot of things that can happen. Right now, you will not be at the main campus. You're going to be at the Westmont Center. It's a lot smaller, it's quieter, but it is absolutely just as safe. And we need to continue to use the same safety regulations we would at the college. I'm going to play a little video for you. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to play a little video for you. So hold on and just listen to this about safety.
Welcome to College of DuPage. We'd like to take a few minutes to familiarize you with some important safety procedures and information. The COD Police Department is fully licensed under the state of Illinois and is a professional 24-hour law enforcement agency. The COD Police Department's main office is located in the Homeland Education Center on the corner of Lambert and Faywell Boulevard. If you need to file a report, you will need to come to this location. For general questions, there is an information window in the Student Resource Center where a police department employee can assist you. For emergency assistance while off campus or at a regional center, dial 911. Contact your regional center manager if you have a question or safety concern. Every classroom is equipped with an emergency response handbook. Take a moment to familiarize yourself with the location of this handbook in each of your classrooms. Many of the topics covered in this video are explained in greater detail in this handbook, as well as on the COD Police Department website at cod.edu/safety. Every classroom is equipped with a telephone. Each of these phones is labeled with an orange sticker with the COD Police Department's contact number. That number is extension 2000. While on campus, if you need to report an emergency situation via your cell phone, do not call 911. Instead, call the COD Police Department directly at 1-630-942-2000. This will result in the fastest response. If you discover smoke or fire, stay calm and activate the nearest fire alarm pull station. The fire alarm sounds like this.
Attention, please. There has been a fire alarm reported in the building. Please evacuate the building by using the nearest stairwell exit. Proceed down the stairs and assemble outside the building.
Then, follow the designated evacuation route, which is posted on a map in each classroom. Once outside, stay with your instructor and move at least 150 feet away from the building. If you need to leave, be sure to inform your instructor. If you need assistance during evacuation, locate a COD volunteer emergency responder. They can be identified by their orange safety vests. If you have a physical disability and are not on the ground floor, it may be necessary for you to take an alternative route during an evacuation. Move to an adjacent building if possible. If the alarm is not sounding in that building, use an elevator to evacuate to an exit level. If you cannot move to an adjacent building, move to a safe location and await assistance. This location is typically in the vicinity of a stairwell. Then call the COD Police Department at 1-630-942-2000. Let them know your name, location, and your cell phone number if possible. If you receive volunteer assistance, please notify the COD Police Department immediately so that they know your new location. If the internal or external weather emergency alarm is activated, stay calm and refer to the Take Shelter map located in each classroom. The weather emergency alarm sounds like this.
Attention, please. Attention, please. Severe weather is proceeding toward our area.
When you hear this alarm, follow your instructor or a COD staff member to the shelter area designated for your classroom. You may be instructed to shelter in place. Wherever your shelter is, stay there until the all clear is given. If you are outdoors when an alarm sounds, quickly take shelter in the nearest building. Stay away from windows and large, unsupported ceilings. Designated shelter areas are usually located in the lowest part of the building, interior spaces, or hallways without windows and bathrooms. If you hear gunfire or other forms of violence, keep these simple steps in mind. Run, hide, fight. The first course of action you should consider is to run. As long as it's safe, immediately evacuate the building. Call the COD police or 911 to let them know the details of the situation. If you cannot exit past your threat, then you should hide. If possible, choose a room without windows or stay out of the sight of windows. If possible, call COD police or dial 911. Be sure to put your cell phone on silent if you are hiding. Finally, if you're confronted by an attacker and have no means to escape, you'll have to fight back. Throw things at the offender's head, make a lot of noise, and, if possible, attack in a group. If someone becomes ill or loses consciousness, immediately call for emergency assistance. Do not attempt emergency procedures unless you have been trained to do so. Automated external defibrillators, or AEDs, are located on each floor of main campus buildings and at each regional center. You can receive weather-related and emergency cancellation and closing information via the Rave Alert system using the contact information you provided to the college. To change or add contact information for updates via text, email, or voicemail, go to www.getrave.com/login/COD. For further safety information, go to cod.edu/safety.
Okay, my friends, that gives you a little idea about what we do at the College of DuPage for safety, whether it's weather, medical emergency, or other emergencies. We want to keep you safe. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about safety at the clinical site. Safety requirements at the clinical site: you have to have a gait belt if you are ambulating people. When you're looking at this first screen here, you can see that this person is a fall risk. If they're a fall risk when they're getting up, they could be a little wobbly, they could be unsteady. You have to have at least one other person, and around the patient you need to have a gait belt. Gait belts are put on when we do this thing called ambulating people. That allows us, if the person becomes unsteady or a little shaky, it allows us to hold on to something so that the person can kind of fall back on that. Now, it's not ideal to be yanking on them with the gait belt. It's our way of kind of stabilizing them. You don't want their arms around your neck or anything like that. So, therefore, when you're in clinical, you absolutely have to have a gait belt with you. That will be a question that will come up later, and I will give you shamelessly the answer to all that. Gotta tell you, safety requirement in the clinical setting, you need to have a gait belt, especially for somebody who has a fall risk. So we're at this wonderful section now. Hold on to your hats, the CNA Student Handbook. This is riveting information. I'm just kidding. I'm going to go through this and explain to you. You need to write down what some of the answers are so that you can answer the quiz at the end of this program very quickly. There are at least 20 quiz questions. So hold on to your hats as we go through this. I'm going to go through some of the policies, some of the procedures, and what you think and what you should know is important. So let me just tell you a little bit about the CNA Student Handbook. It's a really important resource to use throughout the course. You can find it on the CNA website. It's towards the bottom of the screen when you're looking at resources. It has the answers about class, lab, clinical, and much more. I'm holding you accountable for reading that. Why? Because those are the rules and regulations of what you need to know about this class and this program. It includes information about the state certification exam. My friends, after you're done with this course, you're going to take the state certification exam and you're going to be on the healthcare workers registry. How do you know about all that information? It's in the handbook. Much like teachers tell you, it's in the syllabus. I'm going to tell you, it's in the handbook. You will find a lot of information in the syllabus as well for your class, but you will find a lot of information that supports you and answers your question in the CNA handbook. So hold on. Question number 1. I'm going to slow down here so that you can write this information. The first question is to identify the name of the State Department that regulates the Certified Nursing Assistant Training Program, otherwise known as the CNATP. So from now on, I'm just going to call it Certified Nursing Assistant Program. Okay? So who does that? It is done by the Illinois Department of Public Health, IDPH. What they do is the program prepares the graduate to be eligible to take the Illinois State Competency Exam for certification as a nursing assistant with recognition in the Illinois, you get recognition once you pass that, and you're placed on the Illinois Healthcare Worker Registry. The answer to question number 1 is the Illinois Department of Public Health. So I'm giving you a second to write that down because we're going to go on to question number 2 and question number 3. Question number 2 says identify the minimum number of hours of instruction offered in the class or the lab component of the CNA course. And question number 3 says identify the minimum number of instruction hours offered in the clinical component. Here we are. Per IDPH, or the Illinois Department of Public Health, the minimum of 80 hours of instruction in the classroom and lab. So the answer to number 2 is the minimum of 80 hours of instruction in the classroom and lab. For number 3, identify the number of minimum hours of instruction offered in the clinical component. The minimum number of hours is 40 for the practical experience in the clinical setting. What I'm going to tell you is that we have set up 40 hours of clinical for you. In case the pandemic gets a little wilder, what we can do is have you do 20 hours in the clinical setting and 20 hours of simulation. Right now, we're holding off on doing the simulation because we'd like you to have the experience of working in a clinical setting. Answer to number 2 is 80 hours. The answer to number 3 is 40 hours. I said we're here to help you be successful, and that is why I am assisting you with your quiz questions. Let's go on to quiz number 4. We want to talk about 3 principles of a CNA student that needs to be mindful when caring for a healthcare consumer in a clinical. Healthcare consumers, otherwise known as patients or residents. So let's talk about that. There's 3 pillars that you need to know that are super important. The healthcare consumer is a person who can expect a nursing assistant to work within the scope of her practice. The scope of the practice means you have to be, number 1, safe. The first pillar is safety. The second pillar is medical asepsis. Medical asepsis means to not spread disease. A perfect way not to spread disease is to wash your hands. So the second pillar is medical asepsis. And the third is the patient's rights or the resident's rights. So the 3 principles a CNA should be mindful of when caring for a healthcare consumer in the clinical. Number 1 is safety. Number 2 is medical asepsis. And number 3 is the patient and the resident's rights. All right, question number 5. This is a little trickier. List points in the COD Professional Conduct policy which are unclear. So you're going to go to the student handbook and you're going to look at page 6 and page 7. This is a policy for professional conduct. It was revised in fall of 2017. I'm going to tell you that as your interim dean, we expect our students to act in a respectful manner, be professional when you're at the college and when you're at the clinical setting. I will tell you that any violation of professionalism at the clinical setting can possibly threaten our relationship with that clinical. We have a great reputation of having wonderful BNA nursing students, and so a lot of places want our BNA nursing students. As a matter of fact, they'll try to hire you before you're even done with the program. However, if a student is not acting in a professional manner, they're not caring about the welfare and safety of patients and residents whom they're caring for, they might be removed from that clinical site very quickly because we need to maintain the safety. Remember, that's one of the first pillars, and the patient's rights and responsibilities. We need to make sure that you understand it. We take professionalism very seriously at the College of DuPage. So, the CNA student, some of the learning outcomes and objectives, this is how the program was built. Our first learning outcome is professional conduct. We expect you to be professional, act professional, and even look professional when you're at the clinical site and even when you're in our labs and our classes. The next thing is communication. In healthcare, communication is key. It is super important. Why? Because you're communicating health information from one person to another. You might be communicating with a nurse, you might be communicating with other members of the healthcare team, and you have to think about how you come across as a professional. You can't use slang, you can't use some of the jargon that you might with your friends. So communication is very, very important. These days, it's extremely important, especially when you're working with clients, when you're working with patients and you say, I'll be right back, please be right back. Or if you say, I'll be back in a few minutes because I have to do something, make sure that you communicate clearly. The next thing you need to be able to do is manual skills. Manual skills means you need to be able to help sit a person up, ambulate them. You might have to squat a little bit. You need to be able to maneuver around. You also need to be able to take a blood pressure. You have to be able to hear those kinds of things, as well as help your patients with assistance. So this is a very manual job. Not trying to make it sound bad, but I just have to let you know, a lot of manual skills are required for this. So here we are now, riveting. We're into the Certified Nursing Assistant Training Student Handbook, page 8. Program and outcomes an objective overview. This is what the student learning outcomes are. We talked about the 3 pillars, but of course, I want you to perform as a valued member of the healthcare team within the scope of your practice. There's a lot of things a nursing assistant can do. There's a lot of things that they can't do. I need you to perform within that scope of practice. So in other words, you wouldn't be giving medications to a patient because that's out of your scope of practice. You are going to demonstrate safety, medical asepsis, and awareness of the patient's rights, the patient and the resident's rights. Of course, you're going to identify methods of controlling the spread of infection because we don't want to spread infection to anybody. Wearing the appropriate PPE, as well as washing your hands, that's one way to stop spreading infection. We're going to demonstrate the principles of basic human anatomy and physiology. And you might even get used to looking at some of the medical terms and abbreviations that we use in a healthcare setting. Because let's face it, medicine has its very own language. So hope I didn't bore you too much with that. Safety, medical asepsis, awareness of the patient's rights. I'm almost shameless with this, heavens. The Certified Nursing Assistant Training Program, I got to tell you about something that is the law. It is called the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, otherwise known as HIPAA. HIPAA originally was about insurance and about transporting insurance from one to another. It has sort of grown into protected healthcare information. In other words, you cannot share protected healthcare information with anybody outside your clinical setting. You can talk to your instructor, but you may not go home and share information about a patient, sharing their name, their social security number, their hospital number, or their condition with anybody. If a team member asks you a question about the patient, you can do that. You cannot be reading records about anybody. And if somebody happens to be a family member or a friend, you cannot say, oh, I saw so-and-so at where I was at. It's all protected health information. And so this is where the phrase confidentiality comes in. My friends, we're going to watch a little video about this.
HIPAA stands for the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Its original purpose was to protect people from losing their health insurance if they change jobs or have pre-existing health conditions. HIPAA has been expanded over the years to also help reduce the cost and administrative burdens of healthcare transactions, and most recently to develop standards and requirements to protect the privacy and security of personal health information. It's HIPAA's privacy and security rules that we'll cover here. HIPAA's privacy and security rules require healthcare organizations to adopt processes and procedures to ensure the highest degree of patient confidentiality. It makes sense. Patients desire their information to be secure and rely on you to keep it safe and confidential. Personal health information, or PHI, can be created, stored, or transmitted in many formats through verbal conversations, written documents, over computer software or hardware, and in various other forms. All require security and confidentiality measures to be implemented. PHI may include anything in the patient health records, such as lab results, medical history, images, and more. It also includes other patient information like names, birth dates, social security numbers, email addresses, and other information that can be used to create identity theft. It seems like every day we hear about another data breach. Keeping patient information safe is what HIPAA governs and what you are responsible to protect. A covered entity under HIPAA may not use or disclose protected health information unless a patient authorizes its disclosure in writing. However, we may disclose protected health information without an individual's authorization for any of the following purposes or situations. 1. To any individual that has been authorized by the patient. 2. For treatment, payment, or general healthcare operations. Or 3. If the individual has the opportunity to agree or object to a disclosure. For example, when the patient brings another patient into the exam room. In addition, all practices are required to provide patients with a Notice of Privacy Practices, NPP. It is a best practice to make a good faith effort to obtain a patient's written acknowledgement of receiving the notice. The NPP must inform patients of the uses and disclosures of PHI that the practice may make and define the patient's right to access and amend their medical information. Except in certain circumstances, individuals have the right to review and obtain a copy of their protected health information. You may impose reasonable fees for the cost of copying and fulfilling the patient's request. When you disclose PHI, you must use the minimum necessary information to accomplish the purpose of the disclosure or request. Practices must identify each employee who needs access to PHI to carry out their job, and PHI should be limited to a need-to-know basis. For non-employees, you must limit the amount PHI of what is needed to accomplish the work. You should also rely on ethics and your best judgment in deciding whether to disclose protected health information. The HIPAA security rule requires covered entities to implement administrative, physical, and technical safeguards to ensure that medical information is stored, transmitted, and received in a safe and secure manner. Administrative safeguards require practices to create and maintain updated policies and procedures for employees to learn and follow to help maintain the security of PHI. Some examples of administrative safeguards include acceptable use policies to help train employees on their access rights and responsibilities with handling PHI. Sanction policies are needed to discipline employees who violate HIPAA law. Information access policies grant appropriate access to computer workstations, health records and transactions, and other programs or processes. Security awareness training must be implemented, so employees are trained and reminded of policies and procedures relating to software updates, computer login monitoring, password updates, and other key security measures. And contingency planning, so adequate preparation, policies, and procedures are in place in order to respond to an emergency. For example, if there is a fire, vandalism, or other natural disaster, an incident and emergency response plan must be created, tested, and revised, and all critical activities must have a designated owner. Technical safeguards require practices to implement procedures and the right software and equipment to protect PHI. Practices must implement technical policies and procedures to allow access to only those people who need access to do their jobs. Practices should incorporate encryption and decryption in backing up, restoring, and transmitting electronic patient information. And policies and procedures must be set up to destroy PHI when it is no longer necessary to fulfill a job or function. Physical safeguards must be implemented to protect the location and devices within your practice. Facility access controls must be created, and all access must be monitored. It's important that you understand and monitor who is accessing the practice, and security measures are put in place prior and after a potential incident. To help administer these safeguards, HIPAA requires that every practice designate a HIPAA security and HIPAA privacy officer. The designee can be the same person, if appropriate. The HIPAA security and privacy officers play key roles in leading the implementation and training of HIPAA requirements for your practice. HIPAA is enforced by the Office of Civil Rights, a division of the Health and Human Services. Penalties can be up to $50,000 per penalty per violation, and increase up to $1.5 million per identical penalty or willful neglect in any calendar year. Civil and criminal penalties may apply depending on the offense. In addition, with the enactment of HIPAA's Omnibus Rule in September 2013, covered entities were expanded to include your business associates, which include auditors, consultants, IT companies, and others with whom you have agreements involving the use of protected health information. That means when a doctor takes notes in a medical chart or an assistant, data enters health information into a report or online program discussing a patient's condition. Any entity that also is in contact with this information is now governed under HIPAA. HIPAA requires that updated business associates agreements are executed between the practice and all business associates. It's important you do everything necessary to protect your patient's private information and to comply with the HIPAA security and privacy rules. The practice's reputation is at risk if you violate HIPAA law or if patient information is compromised. Penalties can be devastating, and it's your duty to contribute to a commitment of developing a culture of compliance and data security for your practice. If you see any suspicious activity, Please report it to your supervisor as soon as possible. Thank you for participating in today's HIPAA training. Please follow up with your supervisor if you have any additional questions.
So all I can say is, yikes, $50,000 per violation. Guys, HIPAA is a law, and we're not going to break that. I know that we're not. So just wanted you to understand how important that is, because we don't share protected healthcare information with anybody that is not part of the healthcare team taking care of that patient. Question number 6, looking at the course outcomes, list other classes you had in the past that will be helpful. So the course outcomes, we're going to talk about professional conduct, communication, manual caregiving skills. These are the outcomes. That's what I want you to be able to do. The end of being in the B.N.A. program, we're going to talk about your professionalism, how you communicate, and your ability to give manual caregiving skills. All right, so how do I become successful in the program? Studying. There's a reason it ends in dying. Oh my gosh, it's a lot. But this is new information that you're taking in. You're going to be taking care of people. By taking care of people, I really need you to study hard, read your book, listen to your lectures, go over your lab material so that you can test out. There's no way to make it through this program without studying. Sort of the basis of as you move on in your careers, you're going to have to study and you have to kind of do the work there. So my friends, I'm with you because I've got classes too that I'm taking, but I still need to study and I'm a whole lot older than you. So hang in there as you go through this, develop study groups, have study buddies that you can do things with. This is one way that you're going to be successful in the program. I'll stop nagging. Okay, let's talk about the NURSA 1105 content sample. We're going to think about studying the learning objective. Define medical asepsis and identifying methods of controlling the spread of infection. So what really is the topic? The topic is infection, and the subtopic is what are the causes of infection? What spreads infection? So what I'm going to tell you is that we're going to show you something about bloodborne pathogens. Sorry, I'm showing you so many videos, but bloodborne pathogens are a way that we spread disease, and this will kind of give you a little more information about that.
According to OSHA, approximately 5.6 million workers in healthcare and other facilities are at risk of exposure to bloodborne pathogens such as HIV, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C. Employers are required to adhere to all OSHA standards and provide training to employees that could be exposed to bloodborne pathogens. Employees are required to take the bloodborne pathogen training and follow all procedures related to the handling of potentially infectious materials. OSHA's bloodborne pathogen standard prescribes safeguards to protect workers against the health hazards from exposure to blood and other potentially infectious materials, and to reduce their risk from this exposure. All employees who may face contact with blood and other potentially infectious materials while performing the duties of their job are covered by the bloodborne pathogens standard. Good Samaritan acts, such as assisting a coworker with a nosebleed, would not be considered occupational exposure. Exposure can occur as the result of a needle stick, a cut from a sharp object, or contact of mucous membranes, for example, the eye, nose, mouth, or broken skin with contaminated blood. Treat all human blood and body fluids as if they are infectious. Here are some examples of blood-borne pathogens that you should be familiar with. Hepatitis B is a disease that attacks the liver. The disease can be prevented by a hepatitis B vaccine. Symptoms include fatigue, stomach pain, nausea, loss of appetite, jaundice, and darkened urine, though sometimes the disease doesn't present any symptoms. Hepatitis C is also a disease that attacks the liver. However, the disease cannot be prevented by vaccine. Signs and symptoms of the disease include fatigue, weight loss, nausea, and depression. The majority of people don't have any symptoms. HIV is the virus that causes AIDS. When a person has HIV, it means that the HIV virus is in his or her body. Over 1 million people are living with HIV in the United States. When a person has AIDS, it means HIV has made it so the body cannot fight off infections. Since AIDS is an advanced form of an HIV infection, everyone who has AIDS also has HIV. Symptoms can include fever, chills, rash, night sweats, muscle aches, fatigue, and swollen lymph nodes. If you are exposed to potentially infectious materials, wash the exposed area with soap and water. Splash your nose, mouth, or skin with water. Irrigate your eyes with water or saline. Report the exposure to a supervisor. If another worker comes into contact with infectious materials, direct the worker to a healthcare professional immediately. Specialized clothing or equipment worn by an employee for protection against infectious materials must be properly cleaned, laundered, repaired, and disposed of at no cost to employees. Handle contaminated laundry as little as possible and use personal protective equipment. Laundry must be bagged or containerized at location where used and must be placed and transported in labeled or color-coded containers. Contaminated work surfaces must be decontaminated with an appropriate disinfectant. Biohazard warning labels are required on containers of regulated waste, refrigerators and freezers containing blood and other potentially infectious materials, and other containers used to store, transport, or ship blood or other potentially infectious materials. In summary, OSHA's blood-borne pathogen standard prescribes safeguards to protect workers against the health hazards from exposure to blood and other potentially infectious materials, and to reduce their risk from this exposure. Implementation of this standard will help prevent hepatitis B cases and significantly reduce the risk of workers contracting AIDS, hepatitis C, or other blood-borne diseases. This has been a production of Federal Safety Solutions. For more information, please visit fssamerica.com.
All right, my friends, that is a brief talk about bloodborne pathogens. In this new era of COVID, besides washing your hands, wearing gloves, I must tell you that PPE is really important. You must wear a mask, and we also have face shields for you when you go to the lab. Some of the things I need you to know. What are bloodborne pathogens? What happens if something splashes on me? The very first thing you have to do is keep calm. I know you don't want to, but keep calm and ask, is it wet? Or perhaps, did I bump myself? Is it mine? If you do get exposed, you need to wash the area off with soap and water immediately. If it's your eyes, you might have to rinse them out, but most of us are with the face shield on. You don't have to worry about that. The very first thing you need to do, though, is take a breath and keep calm, because I have to tell you that that will help you and your nerves a lot. And you can say, well, I don't know if I should be calm. Being anxious doesn't help us at all. And we've got policies, we've got ways to manage it. You must be safe in the clinical setting, though. You cannot expose yourself to bloodborne pathogens. So use the appropriate PPE. Moving on. Oh, nursing 1105 homework. Yikes. All reading is required and will be fair game for exams. Yep, the teachers have said all reading is fair game. Not just some of it, not just the text. Reading and writing, working in the workbook, they are going to require you to know the information. Why? Because you're taking care of people. This will also set you up for success in the future as you move forward if you choose to do so. So, got to tell you, stay connected, complete the homework, try to really be on time, because when you slip behind, oh my goodness, it's so hard to catch up. Question number 6 we talked about. So we're now at question number 7. So identify measures to be taken if a student has a change in health status while enrolled in the B.N.A. program. I got to tell you, like no time ever, if you're not feeling well, do not come to school. Do not come to lab. Do not go to clinical. Notify your instructor that you will not be there because you're sick. If you have a change in health status, please take care of yourself. We're talking about one of the pillars when you're taking care of people is medical asepsis. If you're sick, you do not want to give somebody else an infection. So take care of yourself. Notify your instructor. If for some previously, changes of condition would be, did you get pregnant? Did you have an auto accident? Did you slip? Did you fall? Some of those things might require a physician's note to say, you're safe to come back. That's not because we're trying to be mean. We're trying to keep you safe because we don't want you overexerting or hurting yourself to finish the program. So if there's a change in health status, what you need to do is notify your teacher. Notify your teacher. That would be a true thing. Honestly, I could be in trouble for the way I'm helping you. Let's talk about the Certified Nursing Assistant Student Handbook. There are some folks that might need accommodations met if they have a documented learning disability. That could be dyslexia, it could be anxiety, it could be all kinds of things. What you can do, the very first thing you need to do is to talk to your teacher about access and accommodations. If you think that you need them, they will refer you to the Center for Access and Accommodations. Some of you may already have what we call a blue card. If you have a blue card, you have to notify your instructor that you have a blue card, and you also have to let them know what the accommodations are that need to be made. Every effort will be made to provide you the assistance that you need. But the first thing you have to do is to tell us that you need assistance. Please don't wait till midway or close to the end of the program to say, oh, I've got a blue card. Because if you've been struggling, we don't want you to do that. We want to partner with you to help you be successful. So if you have access and accommodations, if you have a blue card, please let your instructor know. If you feel like you need more assistance and you're struggling with this, talk to your teacher. And let's see if that's something that we can refer you to, okay? Again, we are here to support you, to help you be successful. So now, let's talk about some of these essential functions. Oh my gosh, you need to have motor capabilities and sensory capabilities. Motor capabilities, you just need to be able to move from room to room. Squat, I'm really not sure about crawling, but you need to bend over, you need to be able to reach over your shoulders, you need to stand and balance, climb stairs. Sometimes you have to lift and carry up to 50 pounds. That's a lot of weight. Or you have to be able to exert up to 100 pounds of force to push or pull. You need to be able to use your hands repetitively. You have to be able to walk. And believe me, you need to perform CPR. Also, you need to be able to travel from the school or your home to the clinical sites. Sensory capabilities is how you take things in. You coordinate verbal and manual instructions. You can hear sufficiently to talk to clients or members of the healthcare team. You can hear soft sounds such as when you're taking a blood pressure. Those are called carrot cough sounds. You need to be able to listen to them. You need to be able to see and read documents and charts. Got to tell you, when you're old like me, sometimes you need to have reading glasses to help you, but you do have to be able to read. And you have to be comfortable working in close proximity with patients. What does that mean? I may have to touch people, I may have to move people, and you've got to be comfortable with some of that. More essential functions, communication is key. You have to be able to communicate effectively in English with patients, their families, and other healthcare providers. You got to be able to adapt your communication for the intended audience. Sometimes people have a hard time hearing. Sometimes they just need to understand the words that you're saying. And sometimes we use medical jargon. So you need to be able to tell a patient what that is. You have to assume the role of the healthcare team member because you are a team member when you're at clinical, and you have to function effectively under supervision. In other words, your supervisor or the nurse gives you a direction. You need to be able to say, I can do that, or I can't do that, or I need help because I've never done that before. You have to have some computer literacy skills. These days, everybody needs to have that because so much of this is virtual. Next, let's talk about problem solving. When you're taking care of people, it can be very stressful, so you've got to be able to function effectively under stress, respond to emergencies. Maybe you need to adhere to infection control procedures. That means I need to wear the right PPE for the right patient. You need to be able to reason or prioritize. Sometimes you have to use sound judgment and safety precautions. If somebody needs help and you're the only one there and you know that they're unsteady, you might have to call for somebody else before you get them out of the chair or bed. You have to organize and prioritize job tasks. Is it more important to take somebody to the bathroom or more important to set up somebody to eat their meal? I know that sounds kind of crazy, but we have to learn how to prioritize what's really important. And nurses tend to use Maslow's hierarchy of needs to do that. I'm not worried about that right now because you guys are in the trenches. You're going to be working with people. Some of the behaviors and skills, this is all leaning towards professionalism. You follow policies and procedures required in the academic and clinical settings. They are there to keep you and the patient safe. You've got to adhere to the College of DuPage academic honesty policy, and you've got to adhere to the College of DuPage Code of Conduct for the college catalog. You also have to abide by and set forth Health Information Portability and Accountability Act. In other words, you got to abide by the HIPAA guidelines that were discussed with you earlier. Confidentiality and not discussing patient situations with non-healthcare workers taking care of them is really important. So let's talk about the CNA handbook, page 10. We're just rolling right through the handbook. You have got a criminal background check with fingerprinting. I know that Nisha Essex has worked with some of you. So what I'm going to tell you, fingerprinting is used for the background check and must be done prior to the start of class. You've been doing that. A student with a positive background check containing disqualifying convictions, as defined by the state law, will not be allowed to enter the clinical portion of the program. You need to drop the course. If a student presents with an IDPH waiver for a criminal conviction, the information will be disclosed to the affiliate liaison at the clinical site, and the IDPH mandates relevant to criminal background changes for the student will be followed. All students are expected to be fingerprinted. Students who do not complete this requirement aren't allowed to attend the first clinical and will consequently be dropped due to failure to comply with the state mandated clinical requirements. My friends, these are state mandated requirements. This is what we call part of the Patriot Act. And again, this just keeps everybody safe. So, page 10, important, but I know that you've probably already done that. Super important, that's why it started. Let's talk about the attendance policy. Okay, The Illinois Department of Public Health mandates that all students attend a minimum of 80 hours of theory and 40 hours of clinical instruction. So you have to do 80 hours of theory and 40 hours of clinical instruction. That is the minimum. Therefore, attendance at all theory classes and all clinical sessions is mandatory. You could say, but what happens if we're sick? We will help you with a makeup, but attendance is mandatory in order to pass this program. Again, 80 hours of theory, 40 hours of clinical instruction. All classes need to be done. You need to have those hours completed in order to pass the program. That's one of the many things you need to do. So please plan ahead, take care of yourselves so that you can do that. Do not come to class this way. Attendance is mandatory for each class and clinical session. This should not be, I don't know, this was obviously pre-COVID. No attendance policy means no, you're not going to attend the class, because we do not want students showing up to class who are not ready for the class or are ill. So there's my nagging to you. Sorry. The Certified Nursing Assistant Training Student Handbook. Here's a whole thing about clinical attendance. Attendance is mandatory at every scheduled clinical session. Failure to comply with the mandatory health requirements could be affect your ability to attend a clinical session. Arriving late carries consequences for unavoidable absences, such as you had an accident or an illness. You need to notify the instructor prior to the start of clinical and provide reasonable evidence of the cause of your absence. If there's more than one clinical absence, failing grade for the clinical will be given, thus failure of the course. I will tell you that we've relaxed a little bit about that just because of coronavirus, because you guys need to be, you need to recuperate. Clinical absences must be made up by scheduling attendance with another clinical session. We've been doing that. And failure to attend the scheduled clinical makeup will result in a second clinical absence. Oh heavens. And so you might wind up with a failing grade. So you need to show up to all the clinicals, and at no point during the clinical will a student be allowed to leave the facility or assigned floor without first speaking to the instructor. Do not leave without letting your instructor know. This is part of communication, my friends. Let's talk about drop or withdrawal. The final day for a student to withdraw from any course will be equal to 75% of the time of the respective academic sessions. Got to tell you, your teachers will communicate to you the dates at which the 75% rule kicks in. You can withdraw from the course after or before 75%. After that, you have to go through a grade appeal process. You don't want to do that. So if you want to withdraw from the course, the very first thing you need to do is to notify the instructor and let them know what's happening. If for some reason you just decide not to show up anymore, rather than notify an instructor, you will not be withdrawn from a course. You will get a grade of F. So you must contact the registration department if you choose to stop going to the course or you want to withdraw. Ask your teachers about the 75% date. They should give you that information. I need to tell you, 8 to 10 weeks goes by very quickly. Previously, before the computers, we say, my dog ate the homework. Now, after computers, we say, my dog deleted my homework. While that is always a possibility, plan ahead, put this into your calendar, get your stuff done, get it turned in. I know that you can do that because you're listening to this. You're spending a lot of time listening to this. You're going to do well. Plan ahead. I want you all to be successful. Question number 10 is going to be list supplies that the CNA student must have for class. My good friends, I want you to write down at least 3 supplies that you have that you need for the first day of class. Could be the textbook, could be the workbook, the skills videos, the syllabus, the handbook. How about a College of DuPage student ID or a blood pressure cuff, stethoscope, pen and paper for clinical, or watch with the second hand? You absolutely have to have that GAIT belt. absolutely important. And you have to have a uniform and comfortable white shoes worn to all classes and clinical sessions. Pick 3 of those things and say, hey, what are these 3 things that I absolutely have to have for the first day of class? Your uniform, a watch, a stethoscope, blood pressure cuff, possibly an ID. Those are things that you're going to be asked for question number 10. So, as we're zipping through the student handbook, let's talk about attendance and preparedness. Students are expected to abide by the attendance policies, and we know that you need to show up every time a class is scheduled. But you need to wear your uniform every clinical session. The uniform consists of the navy blue scrub pants, hemmed without touching the floor, a white scrub top with pockets, undergarments can't be revealed, white supportive protective shoes, no sandals, high heels, clogs, Crocs. Your foot needs to be completely covered. The reason why your foot needs to be completely covered is because we want nothing to, that's an OSHA law, that nothing can bang into the back of your feet. You need to have white socks. Did I ever say gait belts were important? Here we are, gait belts. You can also bring that to the first day of class. You need a watch with a sweeping second hand and a COD identification badge. You need to wear that above the waist at all times. And the reason is that's how they allow you to clinical. Your hair must be of natural color, neat, clean, and off the shoulders. Long hair must be arranged off the collar. And you could say, boy, that sounds kind of odd. The reason why you want to wear your long hair back is that when you're taking care of patients and you're bending over, you do not want your hair to fall in wounds or, I'm just going to say, other areas. Makeup must be conservatively used. Understand what that means. Facial hair on male students must be short, clipped, and well-groomed. You could say, really? You're going to ask me to do that? This is why. These days, we're all wearing face masks. In order to get a good seal with that face mask, you have to have that beard trimmed down and groomed. So, think about these requirements. What you absolutely have to have is a gait belt, a watch, a COD badge, wear your scrubs, wear comfortable shoes. Gait belt is absolutely necessary. I hope you understand what I'm saying there. Clinical preparedness. I got to tell you, when you're sick, you don't want to smell strong perfumes on anybody. They can just make you more ill. You can wear one small post earring in each ear. However, no facial or body piercings are allowed. Fingernails, neat and clean, short, filed for safe patients. You don't want to scratch anybody. No sculpted, artificial, or gel nails are acceptable because they can chip. They can also spread infections. So natural nails are the best. Body tattoos have to be covered during clinical. We expect people to take daily showers and use deodorant to prevent offensive body odors. The students will be asked to leave if a body odor or tobacco odor is strong. Sometimes I've had students sit in a car and smoke, and when they walk in, whew, their whole uniform smells like smoke. Please be considerate of the people who you're working with because you're going to be in close proximity with them. There is no gum chewing allowed. Cell phones, electronic devices won't be allowed in the clinical units. It's really preferable that you include all cell phones. Anything valuable, don't bring it to the clinical setting. Most facilities don't have an area for you to lock it up, and the facility and the college aren't responsible for you losing things. So I'm going to tell you that you probably should lock that up in the trunk of your car. Talk to your teachers about cell phones. The instructor may have additional requirements to address the code and clinical requirements. That kind of depends upon the clinical site policies. Okay, and I'm going to say question number 11, which is not true. I apologize for the 2 red things. Gait belts are not optional. You have to have the gait belt with you. A, B, C, D, E, and G are all true. What's not true? Gait belts. They are not optional. You have to have them. Okay? So there you are, all the way to question number 11 now. We're doing great. You're hanging in there. Not too much longer to go. I promise, because I'm getting tired of hearing myself talk. Heavens. Let's talk about the grading policy. A passing grade in both theory, lecture, and lab, and a clinical component must be achieved in order to sit for the Illinois State Competency Exam for nurse aides. Students must completely demonstrate all the skills mandated by the Illinois Department of Public Health. The list of skills with the detailed guidelines are found in where? Oh yeah, the CNA Student Handbook. That handbook has everything that you need to know to help you pass this program. So let's talk about the assessment area. There's Area 1, Area 2, and Area 3. Area 1 has to do with exams, 1 through 6. Each exam is worth 50 points. The total number is 300 points for all 6 exams. Assessment Area 2, CPR, your clinical journal, and your flexible assignments is worth 60 points for a total of 100 points. Assessment Area 3 is the final exam. The total is 100 points. Students must achieve a cumulative score of 78% or higher in each written assessment area. And assessment area 1, 78%. Assessment area 2, 78%. Assessment area 3, 78%. So you must achieve a cumulative score of 78% or higher in each written area to pass the program. So I'm just going to let you take a quick look at this area here. One of the questions you'll be asked about which of the following is false about grading and evaluation in the theory component of Nursing 1105. The assessment area 2, CPR, test, journal, assignment, and online module assignments total 100 points. They do not total 100 points. Oh, they do. Sorry. What a goofball I am. Here I am trying to help you and say, okay, I'm going to keep moving on. Never mind. I'm looking at your questions and trying to help you. For exam 1, exam 2, exam 3, 4, and 5, these are the chapters and the content. You are responsible for reading those chapters and looking at that before you come to class. Come to class with questions. So what I'm going to tell you is that helps you be engaged. If you read before you come to class, it's not the first time you've come in contact with that material. But if you haven't read it, it's going to be a lot of information to take in. So be prepared as you go through your classes. Let's talk about flex assignments, clinical journal, and the CPR test. Okay, the flex assignment is worth 60 points. The theory instructor has flexibility to design and assign a rigorous assignment that will be designed with the course outcomes in mind, but will be different from what other instructors might assign in their area. Possible projects include, but they're not really limited to, maybe a disease paper, professional or regulatory agency report, community service project. You can work with your instructor. The instructor will describe the assignment or assignments to you, and they'll give you a rubric. That's a grading, that's a way that they grade it, explaining the criteria for point achievement, or how do you get the points that you need to. For your clinical journal, that is worth 15 points. The clinical instructor will monitor the online clinical journal entries and provide feedback. Please refer to the clinical journal rubric point for your distribution. You can find that in your handbook. CPR. Well, in compliance with IDPH guidelines, the College of DuPage requirement for CPR instruction. Each student will attend a scheduled American Heart Association CPR class, regardless of what your current CPR certification is. The CPR test is worth 25 points. Each student must pass the written exam and performance evaluation in order to become CPR certified. The final exam and the extra credit bonus points. The final exam is worth 100 points. It is comprehensive. It means it covers over everything. It's a written exam that will be given at the end of the course. Attendance on the day of the final exam is mandatory. You have to achieve that 78% or higher on the final exam. Extra credit. You can get a 5-point maximum. It's usually assigned week 1. It's turned in between week 2 and week 7. There's no last minute turning in of that, so get it in early. And it's only applied if a passing score is achieved. The extra credit can't bump you from not passing to passing, but it can improve your grade if you're between an A and a B or a B and a C. It can do that. Take the extra credit 5-point maximum and get that done. That's my suggestion to you to assist you with this. So, grading and evaluation of the clinical components of the NURSA is pass, no pass, and accomplished by completing the 21 skills attending all clinical sessions. Now, I want you to think about this. Clinical grading is pass-fail grading. Pass-fail grading for clinical is based on the evaluation criteria for the clinical used and the clinical evaluation tool. The clinical evaluation tool is used in the clinical setting. A numeric scoring system is used to determine the student's progress. However, the numbers are not points awarded, but you got to get a passing grade for the clinical, and it's based on receiving at least a score of 44 on the clinical evaluation tool. Each student may have 3 assessment attempts to completely perform each skill prior to the end of the course. Failure to completely perform all IDPH mandated skills will result in the failing of the course. Failure to pass the clinical component will result in the failing of the entire course, regardless of the theory grade. So, grading and evaluation of the clinical component of the NURSA 1105 is pass/no pass and accomplished by competently performing the 21 skills and attending all the clinical sessions. My friends, that would be true. Number 12, that would be true. Here we are at number 13. We're rolling right along. The CNA students have not 1, not 2, but 3 attempts to complete each of the 21 skills and competencies. That's right, I said 3. Why? Because we remember things that land in 3. Okay? So, if you want something to stick in somebody's head, put it in a sequence of 3. CNA students have 3 attempts to complete each of the 21 skills. Hold on to that number. 14. Grading and evaluation in the theory component of Nursing 1105 is accomplished by which of the following criteria? A student must achieve 78% or above in a written assessment area. We know that's true. A student must achieve at least 234 points on exam 1 through 6. The CPR exam is worth 25 points. We know that's true. There is no extra credit offered in the course. There is, isn't there? Flexible points, journaling assignments, and class assignments will total 75 points for the course. So, as I look at question number 14, think about which one is not. Which of the following is false about the grading and evaluation of the theory? We know that everybody needs to get 78%. I'd have to do the calculation on B. We know that the CPR exam is worth 25 points. We do know that there is extra credit. Oh, look, D is not highlighted like the others. So there is extra credit offered for the course. There you are. It would be D. Number 15, identify how many points must be achieved in the NURSA 1105 to earn an A, a B, or a C. Okay, I want you to look at this. So your total points possible is 500 plus possibly 5 of the extra credit. To get an A, you need to be anywhere from 465 to 505 points, okay? To earn a B, you need to be 425 or 464.9 to earn a B. To earn a C, you're at 390 to 424.9 for a C. The way that I would remember it easily is 465, 425, 390. You're just subtracting, the rest of it is 465 is the cutoff for an A, 425 is the cutoff for a B, 390 is the cutoff for a C. You need to know the ranges of numbers for your next quiz question. So write those down. I'm giving you a few minutes just to do that while I take a sip. Because you have been very kind in listening to me, and I have been yakking for a long time. Guys, that is quiz number 50, quiz question number 15. I got 5 more to go, and you're going to go along and have a great day. What you need to review prior to class is the Illinois Nurse Aid testing information that's on page 21, the IDPH Certified Nursing Assistant Performance Skills Standard 8. These are about all your skills. Your theory and clinical evaluation tools. Take a look at your clinical evaluation tools so that you know that what you're assessed on. The nursing department occurrence report. If for some reason you run into some difficulty, they might have to write an occurrence report. You can take a look at that. And the student evaluation, that's really important, of the NURSA 1105 course. Those things are important because that is what you're gonna, those are some of the ways that we evaluate you. The competency evaluation, what you're gonna find when you go to this nurseaidtesting.com when you're done with this program, you're gonna talk about test registration. You're gonna verify test registration. You're going to look for sites, not it all happen at the College of DuPage. Some of these are virtual and they fill up fast. You're going to find approved Illinois Nurse Aid testing programs. Get your FAQs, or frequently asked questions, answered. I would take the practice exam so that you get used to doing this. And other useful information, possibly their mailing address or phone number, their email messaging, exam dates, very, very important. And you look at the Nurse Aid Registry. What I'm going to tell you about the competency exam, the exams are all given virtual. They're computer-based because of coronavirus. Very few are in-person computer-based exams, and some are paper-based exams. It all depends upon what your accommodations are. Dates and times are going to be determined. That it can happen at the College of DuPage or any location in Illinois. So I'm going to tell you that all the other B&A students are also looking for these. So anybody in Illinois, we're all going to be looking for the same sites. You need to register, and it must be completed prior to test day. All seats fill up very quickly. So got to tell you, when you're done, you got to get this done because the seats do fill up quickly. So let me tell you what week 1 is going to look like online. Blackboard will become accessible on January 25th for the early start classes and mid-March for the late start classes. You've got online modules, you've got online homework to do. Week 1, you got to do the orientation, module 1 and module 2. Week 1, in-person lab meetings. What I'm going to tell you is that when you come to the Westmont Center, you are going to have to you're going to be screened at the entrance. Let me say that again. If somebody were to ask you a question like, will you be screened at the entrance? The answer is yes, you will be screened at the entrance. You will wear a mask. You will be assigned to a lab room, 3A or 3B. You're going to wear your scrub uniforms. You're going to have clean shoes that are not used for clinical sessions. Bring a bagged meal and a beverage, nothing that needs to be microwaved because there is no microwaves to be used there. On lab day 1, you're going to be tested on the hand hygiene skill. So if I were to write a question about this, like, will you be screened at the entrance? The answer is yes or true. The IDPH CNA performance skill. I'm going to show you a hand washing skill and then using the hand gel or if you don't have water, but that's only for students who don't have dirty, not soiled hands. So let's watch this first YouTube, and we'll go from there.
Hand washing should take you about 1 minute. Use a timer or count from 1 to 10 in each of the following steps. Wet hands with water and apply enough soap to cover all surfaces of the hands. Let the water run smoothly to avoid touching the tap later on. Rub hands palm to palm to obtain a good quantity of foam. Then rub right palm over the back of left hand with interlaced fingers and vice versa. Rub again palm to palm with fingers interlaced. Rub the back of your fingers to opposing palms with fingers interlocked, repeating this action for each hand. Rub rotationally left thumb clasped in right palm and vice versa. To clean the tips of the fingers, rub rotationally backwards and forwards with clasped fingers of right hand in left palm and vice versa. Rinse hands thoroughly with running water. Dry hands thoroughly with a single-use towel. If the tap is not elbow operated, use this towel to turn off the tap without touching it directly. Your hands are now clean and safe.
Okay, you're gonna need to watch that video. You can, it's just about hand washing. You also have the performance skill 1. You will be tested on this on the first day of your lab.
Please note that this technique is not appropriate when hands are visibly dirty or after using the toilet. In these cases, hand washing is required. Hand rubbing should take you 20 to 30 seconds. Use a timer or count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in each of the following steps. Apply a palmful of alcohol-based hand rub in a cup hand, enough to cover all surfaces of the hands. Rub hands palm to palm, then rub right palm over the back of left hand with interlaced fingers and vice versa. Rub again palm to palm with fingers interlaced. Rub the back of your fingers to opposing palms with fingers interlocked, repeating this action for each hand. Rub rotationally left thumb clasped in right palm and vice versa. To clean the tips of your fingers, rub rotationally backwards and forwards with clasped fingers of right hand in left palm and vice versa. Once dry, your hands are now clean and safe.
All right, my friends, know that these are the skills that you're going to have to know for the first day of lab. So I'm going to tell you thank you. A few things I want you to know. You will be screened at the door of the Westmont Center and your clinical. While you are in the building, you will need to stand 6 feet apart. You cannot congregate together. Even if you have masks on, 6 feet apart, that's a rule. Why? Because if somebody accidentally gets exposed to coronavirus and you're not 6 feet apart, we're going to have to shut down that section of the class. We don't want to do that. Masks on while you're in the building. You stay 6 feet apart. You're going to wear your scrubs to the very first day and every day thereafter to lab and clinical. You're going to read the CNA handbook, and at the end of this, there's a link that you've got to take. It's 20 questions for a quiz. I have shamelessly given you most of the answers. There's nothing hard to worry about. I wish you the best. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Misha Essex. And again, my name is Dillis. Thank you and welcome to the College of DuPage. I wish you nothing but success in your first BNA course and as you move through our courses and your education. Take good care. Bye-bye.